Welcome to the Less Doing podcast, where you will learn how to start living more by doing less.
Let me help you optimize, automate, and outsource your entire life so you can focus on doing the things you love.
Now here's your host, Ari Meisel.
So, Jason, one of the things that I always like when I have people on this show is when I hear a new title. So you are the CVO of Animoto, is that right?
Yes, the Chief Video Officer is my title.
Chief Video Officer. So those of you who are not familiar with Animoto, you probably are familiar with Animoto because anytime you're scrolling through Facebook through a lot of the BS and you stop because there's a cool video playing with words on it or things moving around, odds are it's probably an Animoto video. And so Jason has co-founded this company and helped create this platform that makes it a lot easier to get your message across. And we certainly use it. We love Animoto and we love using video in general as a medium. So Jason, how did you get into starting Animoto? What led up to that? What were you doing before?
Well, my life prior was I was actually a TV producer for MTV and Comedy Central here in New York. I was doing that for a whole chapter before Animoto, and basically a few colleagues and I, my co-founder, one of my co-founders, he was also working in TV at ABC, and it was kind of a dream job, to be able to work in TV, but we just saw kind of how fast everything was changing around us, from internet to social media, cloud computing, and like these mobile, mind you, this is like before the iPhone. It's like these mobile things getting smaller and smaller to the point where they can now like fit in your pocket. It just seemed like inevitable that these things were probably going to have like internet connections and cameras. And so we just felt like we couldn't stop thinking about all the possibilities. And we knew video had to be a big part of all this, this new future. And so we basically, started working nights and weekends to kind of prove this concept, kind of nerdy, just trying to figure out how to, render video frame for frame in the cloud, real time, stuff like that. And we thought it was going to take a few months. It took us a year to prove out the technology. But once we felt like we kind of had some momentum, we quit our jobs, and here we are 10 years later.
I mean, it's amazing to me it's been 10 years. And so there's a lot of platforms for making videos, clearly, but I think that Animoto, Magisto to some extent, although that's kind of different. There's all these other tools like that, but this is a different category. Like this is not an iMovie kind of a thing. I think that's worth explaining to people who maybe haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think what we hear all the time, especially from businesses, is that they basically just don't have any experience with it. So what we wanted to do is create the type of tool that you can make professional looking videos without any experience. We're very much inspired by like these website builders, right? If you think about, in fact, we think what's happening with videos is very much kind of in parallel with websites. But if you think about like 10 years ago, you had to spend $10, $20, $30,000 to hire someone to go get a website made, or you had to know like HTML editing and stuff like that. Well, and then came along all these great website builders where you don't have to have any experience to make a beautiful site, just drag and drop easy. And so and today it's like if you don't have a website, you're probably like not even really a business. Everyone has a website. So very similar, we feel like with video that we're just kind of on this wave now where everyone is going to need video. And if we can provide a way that makes it just like the website builders, like drag and drop easy, using building blocks and using starter templates where there's basically no way to create a failed video, and we pour kind of all our wisdom and learnings about what makes for successful video into these starter templates that we call storyboards, that we just make it just brain dead simple for businesses to be able to kind of leverage the power of video.
So what was I guess from a technological standpoint, what was the biggest challenge in building this out?
Well, I think it was interesting. We kind of figured out an original version of how to actually render video on demand. Right, there's 30 frames per second, so it's a lot of kind of computational effort to like produce video from scratch. But I think for us it was really the challenge of scaling. Well, we're like, great, this is awesome. Well, if one person makes a video, but what happens if like 5 or 10 or 100 or 1,000 people want to make a video at the same time? We're screwed. And that, luckily for us, that was right when the cloud computing came along, and long story short, we discovered, Amazon Web Services. I guess what a lot of people don't know is Amazon has all these other parts of their business. One of them is offering, basically web kind of type services for mainly companies for like storage and computational power. So you can just basically pay for it like electricity. So the fact that we didn't have to go out and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on servers that we have to put in our closet that would get dated in 2 or 3 years, that fact that we could just use Amazon was awesome. So that really kind of was the impetus for allowing us to scale in the early days. And then along the way, we actually were fortunate enough to get Amazon to even invest in us a little bit. So that was in the early days certainly the biggest challenge.
And so, what does the team look like now?
So now we're this is like 10 years later. We're like 100 people, mostly in New York. We also have some folks in like San Francisco and Seattle and around the world. And a lot of us came from the world of TV and film. So it's pretty exciting now just to see how video really is everywhere. And, just our whole world is just really trying to empower folks with, the power of video.
So as you're growing now, like what are the challenges that you're facing in the business at this point?
I think it's really kind of about the landscape is, just changing so often that I think particularly when it comes to social media, people just can't seem to want or don't want to keep up. They're just like, wait, you told me 3 years ago it was, it was Pinterest. And then last year you told me it was Snapchat. Now you're telling me it's like Instagram, so it's like everything's just changing so quickly. And so I think a big challenge for businesses is just knowing where to actually invest, their time and efforts, because the last thing you want to do is learn something for it to just kind of become outdated. Luckily for us, and I think why we've actually been around for 10 years and is, with video, it's kind of only grown in importance. So the nice thing about video is it really kind of has, it kind of supersedes any kind of whatever the flavor of the month platform is or usage is. It's only kind of grown in importance. So the investment in video and understanding how to communicate with video has only grown in importance. And it's because, really this is how everyone increasingly prefers to consume their content. So, wherever it is or however it is, video is only growing in importance. And I think we've been able to kind of stay on top of all the trends. And I think, the big value that we've been trying to offer folks is like, for the folks that are just like, I don't even know where to start. Like what's happening right now, right today, just to make sure that we are on top of all the latest trends and best practices and that we're packing all that information and learnings into everything that we're doing. So, people that are, whether they're just kind of getting started or trying to figure out how to take their video efforts to the next level, we know what to tell them, exactly what they need to know today. But yeah, things are, if you think about even the last 10 years, it's been crazy how much of things have changed. When we started, I think it was like MySpace and there was no iPhone and very different world.
That's crazy, right? To think about that. Like, the whole world has changed in a lot of ways then, if put it that way.
Yeah.
And so what about for the future in terms of like new features, new things that you think you're going to be developing for Animoto?
Well, I think, and in some ways, I think it's exciting because it's still kind of the early days of video. And, even though I love, what the videos that we're doing, I still, you compare it to what you see on TV and there's still a whole world of stuff I can't wait to get to. And that, these next few years will be really exciting to kind of unlock all that, super awesome, motion graphic design stuff. And certainly, like mobile and even some of these changing, kind of paradigms like, the fact that even like movie trailers are coming out in square and even like vertical now, that's a whole new kind of sea tide change, So there's a lot of things that are kind of changing, but the fundamentals of, what make for why video is, effective, is not changing. It's like, it's such a rich medium. It's visual, it's audio, it's text. It's just packed with, so much. It's so multidimensional. And especially in the last few years, there's just been so many stats and studies, like people recall 6 times the amount of information from a video than from text, or, like after watching a video, 64% of people are more likely to, make a purchase online. So it's exciting that it's only growing. It's just a matter of really kind of keeping up with all the trends and making sure that things kind of, are tailored for, how people are actually consuming video. But certainly there's no shortage of ideas that we have in the works.
And as chief video officer, what's sort of the focus of your work in a given day?
Well, I think, yeah, it's kind of funny that you open with that. People are like, what's a chief video officer? I think it's just like in any other company where there may be a certain core competency, like an investment company or financial company might have a chief investment officer, or a strategy consulting firm might have like a chief strategy officer, or a technology company might have a chief technology officer. My job, especially with my background as a TV and film producer, is just making sure that I am, really the video expert, and not only making sure that internally with our products and our marketing efforts that we are keeping up with, all the latest and greatest learnings and trends, but even part of this, just like making sure I'm talking with businesses and making sure they understand, the benefits of using video and what's happening today.
So when you're like, how do you guys do planning and project management, for example? I'm curious. Are you doing sprints, or like, what does that look like for you?
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, we've certainly gone through a lot of different kind of evolutions. I think that we have we kind of break things down into from a product standpoint. Actually, we used to be on quarters. We actually now kind of do we call them terms, 8 terms a year. So we kind of prioritize the most important stuff, twice a quarter, and we have 2-week sprints. I think now it's actually moving down to 1-week sprints, and even getting into rapid deploys, deploying stuff multiple times a day. So it's been fun to kind of be part of this evolution of all these technologies that have enabled us to become kind of more agile and nimble. Certainly, but video has also been part of our growth too, which is exciting, that it's not just something that we talk the talk of, but it's really the fact that this whole show is less doing, right? And so the fact that I think of all the ways that video has improved our process or saved us time, like all the things that we do regularly, that we used to have to do regularly, like talk about our business, why we're different, why we're unique, telling the story of our business, the benefits of our business, the things that we're answering over and over on email, the things that we're having to explain over and over to our team and staff. So, we think about all the things that, all the kind of repetition in our kind of daily kind of efforts, and just thinking about, how video, once you've captured it in video, you can really take a lot of that repetition away. And video, as we know, kind of is able to take on a life of its own. So certainly, we're huge fans of like OKRs and, all these other type frameworks and processes. But the fact that we've been able to actually kind of lead our company as kind of a video first company is like, we like to kind of think about and dream about, like, how can you really use video to maximize the efficiency of everything that you're doing, has been kind of also a fun opportunity and challenge.
And how is your relationship with your co-founders? Like, what did that start out as? How has that evolved over time?
Well, so interestingly, I have 3 co-founders, so there's 4 of us. 3 of us went to college together, and actually all 4 of us went to high school together. This is Bellevue High School in a suburb of Seattle. And so, there's a lot of, we always get a lot of questions like, well, what is it like to, to start and build a company with, and by the way, 2 of them are brothers. So it's not just friends, there's 2 of them are brothers and family.
Gosh.
So, certainly, and you hear a lot of people say, never get into business, with your friends or family, because it'll be a nightmare. I think for us, knock on wood, it actually has turned out to be an amazing benefit. And the main reason why is we were able to really kind of start from day one with that kind of that built-in sense of trust and, just reliability. Like, we knew that, we could trust one another, that if one of us said we were going to do things, that we could, that they would do it, and we could keep each other accountable. And I think, interestingly, sometimes we reflect on this, even as our culture has evolved, a lot of it kind of has like this certain dynamics of the way that we started, which is like, we were able to have very, very intense, discussions and debates, and, sometimes it get pretty heated, but then we walk out of the door and it's like, oh, well, that was fun, but, it's nothing personal. And just kind of the way that almost like, brothers might, go out or whatever. But it's like, at the end of the day, we're still friends and family or whatever. And that's kind of, I think, really shaped shaped our culture in a unique way, that we are able to be very open and honest with each other in terms of our opinions and feedback. But at the end of the day, we know it's not personal. It's just like we're all trying to, just make the right choices. So, I certainly, people are like, well, would you recommend starting a, business with family and friends? It all depends on the dynamic and the personalities. You can certainly imagine, like, if things are tough, especially financially, like things can get, ugly or stuff. But, for us, we knock on wood, we've been lucky that we've just kind of been on a, on a kind of a continued growth spurt. So for us, the dynamic that really founded the company has really helped us a lot.
Well, that's amazing. In some ways, you'd think that like that kind of a close-knit friendship and siblingship could be a good thing or a bad thing, right? Because you get to like too much in each other's space. But if you have a good division and definition of roles, that's really, really helpful. Do you guys do anything around like the vision for the company and how the four of you mesh in that way? Do you revisit that?
Certainly, yeah. We're always, trying to evolve, what our our direction is and our priorities. We like I mentioned before, we use this framework, OKRs, which like Google and other companies use. So objectives and key results. So it's really kind of saying what's every year and every quarter, kind of saying what are the most important things we need to get done, and how do we actually measure whether we were successful with that. So that's really been kind of the backbone or how we try to stay focused as a company. And then in terms of the vision stuff, I think what's been lucky for us is I think, like I was mentioning, there's been so much change, but luckily for us, the reason we started the company is we kind of had this core belief that video is the most compelling and effective way to communicate what's important, and that has not changed. Social platforms and social media has evolved and mobile has evolved and all that. But the premise of video being one of the most compelling and effective ways to communicate has actually only grown in importance. So we have not actually had to evolve kind of our core beliefs or core vision that much. We've had to, I'll say one evolution we went through is in the early days, we found a little bit of everyone using Animoto, which was kind of exciting. We're like, wow, all these people, mom and parents, travelers, nonprofits, schools, photographers, businesses, marketers, and so we're like, this is great, right? As we actually started to realize that was a real challenge because we were being pulled in what felt like 1,000 different directions. So when we actually sat down to say, well, what's most important, we didn't really have kind of a clear way to make those type of decisions because we felt like we were serving too many different customers and needs. So kind of maybe halfway through our journey, we really had to kind of take a step back and say, listen, it feels like we're just kind of good at a lot of things at this point. And our technology and our product are almost, because we're being pulled in so many different directions, are kind of becoming, our product is kind of almost feeling like this Frankenstein patchwork quilt of stuff, if I was to be honest. So we totally stepped back and said, listen, would we rather be kind of good at a lot of things or best in the world at one thing? And we all said, yeah, we'd rather be best in the world at one thing. And so let's pick a specific market that we're most excited about, that we think we can be best in the world at. So we kind of actually built a whole new product that we thought, what would be the product that we would be freaked out if, we woke up one day that we thought might disrupt Animoto. And that's what we talked about, like this video builder based on building blocks and a drag and drop interface. And so we built that product, and we said, social media is really only growing in importance, and businesses, in terms of a market opportunity, that seems like the best market opportunity for us to go after. So that was kind of some of the learnings and evolutions along the way.
So the last question I always like to ask in these interviews is what are your top 3 pieces of advice for people to become more effective? And you can interpret that however you like.
Yeah, well, I think, like I was saying, I think it's actually really fun. One of the parts of video, just in the spirit of this show, right? One of the parts of video that doesn't get talked about as often is just how it can actually save, operationally as a marketer or as a business person, it can actually save you a lot of time. So just think about all those things that you do over and over, that you're having to communicate over and over, and think about, hey, what if you're actually able to, use video to kind of capture that, so that video can do more of the work for you. And I think, so that's kind of one, just kind of, I think, just great, meta point in terms of offering efficient operational efficiency. And then I think the other is just people actually, I think sometimes folks just think social media is this kind of like foofy fun thing. You put stuff out there and how do I know what the return is or whatever. The fact is, social media is actually very, very precise. And there's a lot of efficiencies in terms of social media marketing. So if I think about old marketing, which is like marketing today, there's a lot of inefficiencies. There's a lot of kind of like hoping and waiting people discover you, or playing the numbers game. Maybe for every 10,000 emails I send, X% will open and X% will click, or, for every 1,000 phone calls, maybe, X will pick up. But with with social media marketing, you actually have the opportunity to take your message exactly to where the conversation is happening. And so you can be confident that if you're creating a video and you're putting it out there and you're using, the tools that these social platforms provide, you can get laser focused because they offer all sorts of targeting, demographics, locale, very specific interests. You can make sure that your information and content is getting in front of the exact people that should be interested in you. So just in terms of streamlining, making your marketing that much more effective, and you can experiment with, $100, $200 just to even see what that does. So it's not like it's a huge prohibitive cost to get started, using some of these targeting tools. So I think just overall, in terms of like how much more, social video can really streamline not just your operational efforts, but your marketing efforts. I think those are kind of two big areas to think about: reducing repetition and leveraging the targeting abilities of social media.
Great. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much. Where can people find out more and start using Animoto?
Well, certainly everything is on Animoto.com. I thought I'll actually set up a page, let's say Animoto.com/lessdoing, and I'll put my contact info there and some helpful links. Certainly I love talking to businesses out there. So whether you're, just figuring out how to get started, or you're trying to figure out how to take things to the next level, don't hesitate to be in touch. But I'll set up a page, Animoto.com/lessdoing, and put some helpful stuff for your audience out there.
Awesome. Well, hey, Jason, thank you so much for your time. It was very insightful and great information, not only about the product itself, but also about the company and how you've grown. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Likewise. It's been a privilege. Thanks, Ari.
Thanks for listening to the Less Doing podcast. At Less Doing, we help entrepreneurs who have opportunity in excess of what their infrastructure can support to set up systems and processes that empower a team to ultimately make themselves more replaceable. That way, they can optimize, automate, and outsource everything in their businesses in order to be more effective. If you want to find out more about Less Doing, the podcast, the blog, the books, and all of the wonderful programs we offer to help you get from where you are to where you want to be, go to lessdoing.com/podcast and check out our OAO blueprint so you can get started today.